Alright, so as I said earlier, today I'm doing the door handles, and I'm also going to do the tailgate handle. You can see it's chrome now, and I'm going to do that and all 4 door handles, which you just saw get taken off, to white to match the truck. So next we're going to work on taking off this handle. Here's an example. So you open this here, and then you would lift this up. See how one part snaps off? And then you need your other hand to pull on that bottom piece, and you just pull it all off in one piece. So there, and then pull down at the same time as you're pulling on the top. And then the whole piece just comes off, snaps right off. So here's what your handle looks like after you take off the cover plate. So in my case, I'm doing the chrome deletes. I'm gonna paint these white to match the truck. Alright guys, just wanted to show you a little close-up view of what I was talking about. So this is how the handle sits, and these 2 tabs right here, one there and one there. So what you'll do is you'll actually get a grip of it and pull it away on both sides to create separation to pull it off. Okay, so the first thing to do to get this handle off to where we can paint it is remove this assembly from the tailgate. So starting with Torx 25, I'm going to take off these Torx bolts because they hold this cover in place to get down to the handle. Alright, so now that they're off, you just got to pop this off. Mine's sticking a little bit because it's got the bed liner applied to it, looks like. There we go. And I'm going to do this with one hand. There we go. And this whole piece just comes off. Alright. So after that, the next thing we'll do is disconnect what looks like. Here's the handle. So if you look on top here, okay, so next we need to remove the 2 nuts and bolts that hold the handle assembly in place. There's one there, and then there's one there. And the easiest way, it looks like, to get to it is it's a 10mm, so you can come right through the top here and get down onto it through the hole and then start to loosen it. Alright, so now that those nuts are removed from the bolts in there, it looks like we need to disengage just this connection here, which connects from the handle. Okay, next I released these 2 clips. You can see them right top of there and right on top of there. I just squeezed them in so I could pull this out. Once those clips are released, then you can pull this out, and then don't pull too much, so you can, if you have your sensors here, like your camera and your power lock and all that good stuff, you can unhook the sensors, and then once you unhook the sensors, your assembly will be disconnected. Okay, so once you disconnect the sensors, that one from right there and this one, which goes right there, then the assembly comes out. Alright, and the last thing we need to do to separate the handle from the assembly is pull out, there's a pin right there, and then the other pin right there, along with this little spring that's just for when you pull the handle, it snaps back. And once we do that, we can separate the handle. Alright guys, to get these pins out, it's a little bit of work. So you can see there's little ridges right there. And those little ridges help keep this pin in so it doesn't work its way out. But it also makes it hard to get it started. So what I did is I used these vice grips right on the very edge there. I started with a little screwdriver, which I have right here, and I popped this little screwdriver in just to create a little bit of space, and then I went to a bigger screwdriver like this one, got this one in there and created a little bit more space, and then once I got that one in there and started prying a little bit, the piece slid out. Something else I did just to help is I sprayed a little bit of WD-40 in the 2 contact points. I'll show you on this one. I did it like so, where I put a little bit right there and a little bit in that contact point right there. And then, of course, I didn't spray WD-40 on this end because I want to make sure the vice grips can get a good grip on it. And then I used a hammer and tapped in a little screwdriver right between there just to wedge a little bit of space, and then I did the same thing with the bigger screwdriver. That was the easiest way to get it off without trying to use some kind of vise or something else that, you know, could end up damaging either the plastic or the camera that's on the back of this. So there you go. Now that I have the pins out, this will simply pull out of place. Looks like this little plastic pieces. Okay, so the handle comes out like that, and then just have to pop that little piece out, and then the handle's separated, good to paint. Alright, so next comes the prep work. I'm going to start sanding. I'm going to use anywhere from 400 to 600 grit sandpaper. I'm going to use wet, of course. You don't want to gouge any of this, but you do want to start giving it a nice scuffed surface so there's something for the paint to stick to. So then after that I have a Scotch-Brite pad, and I'm going to use that for the final sanding. It helps get around the edges and inside the corners and those types of things. So first I'm going to knock it down with the sandpaper, wet sandpaper, and then I'm going to finish it with this to make sure it's all nice and scuffed. So I'm just about done with the first one that I'm sanding. In this light if you can tell, but the one on the left is the one that I sanded, the one on the right is original, and what you're looking for is a little, it'll have like a foggy, opaque look to it. There'll be the surface, instead of being real shiny and smooth, will have like this gray dull, lots of tiny little scratches in it, and that's going to be the difference that lighting shows you right there. See how much brighter chrome looking the one on the top is compared to the bottom. So it's just about done with that one. You just want it to be grayed out, hued. So the whole thing, make sure you get the edges, the little corners, all that, so paint can stick everywhere and doesn't start to peel. Here's one more shot in some different lighting. You can see the top is very shiny, whereas the bottom has the dull scratch surface. I may need to do a little bit more and make sure that I get good adhesion. But you can see the scratches on the bottom compared to the top is shiny and smooth. So after sanding, I went through and with clean paper towels and alcohol, rubbed all the parts down. Make sure they had a good final clean to them and they were degreased. So you see all the scuff marks there? That's to help the paint and the paint adhesive to adhere to the product. Alright, so now I got my prep. I propped them up on little blocks just so the bottom would not be touching. You could also take extra time and like hang the parts, but just when you paint them, you don't want the solid surface to be touching the surface that you're painting on, because you don't want that paint to set and stick to it and then peel or come off when you try to separate the part from the table. Okay, so first up is the adhesion promoter. I got this from a local paint store. I got this, and then after applying that, we will be going to my factory color, which is Oxford White. I had this made for me there as well. and then after 2 coats of the adhesive promoter, and then I'll probably do about 3 coats of the base color, then it'll be clear coat, which is 2K. Got this from the local paint store as well. It's a clear gloss. And so what I will do is finish off with 2 coats of that, and then should be good. First up, adhesion promoter. So I applied the first coat of adhesion primer, and I'm going to wait a few minutes and apply the second coat. Now it says that after you've applied your coats, the time is 10 to 20 minutes before you apply your paint. So I'm not 100% sure on how long to wait before I apply the second coat of the adhesion promoter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait about 5 minutes or so, just so it doesn't look wet anymore, so I don't get any thick clumps or extra buildup anywhere, and then I will apply my second coat. You're supposed to apply a very thin layer of it. You don't want to have any bumps or clumpiness. So as you saw, I did one fine mist, and I'm going to do one more, and then I'll wait somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes before applying my first base coat. As I'm waiting for the paint to dry, I wanted to go over something. I gave these a light mist. They're coming out good so far. You can see a couple of spots where I didn't get perfect coverage, but that's okay because I'm doing 3 coats. And what I didn't, here's a good example right there. See, there's a little bit of the other color coming through. But what I didn't want to do is spray it so thick that I started getting bubbles or runs or anything like that. Since I'm doing 3 coats, I could afford to not be perfect. Here's another spot right there. So what I'm going to do is on this next start, I'm going to start at the very bottom and try to make sure I fill those edges first, and then I'll work my way up from there. But if I start from the bottom, I can try to make sure that I get that right there. I can try to make sure that I get that right there. So second coat, I'll do the same way. Keep it thin, but try to make sure I get what was missed first, and then give it all a good dusting, and then let it sit again for 20 minutes until I do the third coat. Just finished putting on the third coat. I think we're looking pretty good. So far I don't see any bubbles, any runs, except for, see, one little speck. You can't even see it on this, but anyways, there's one little speck right there, but overall I think it's coming out really, really well. I'm deciding if I should do a fourth coat or just leave it at 3. We'll see. So it's been 20 minutes after the third coat, and I think we're good. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a fourth coat or not, but as you can see, it looks like I've got even coverage, even in the harder to reach spots. So, with that said, I think we're going to go right to clear. Now, what I'm going to be using for clear, guys, is 2K Clear Glamour. Now with this, it has an activator. That red cap goes onto the bottom. You slam it down and that mixes the two compounds together and activates it. Once you activate this, it's only good for about 48 hours. So be sure that you're ready to apply your clear coat before you activate, because you only got 48 hours after that. So if you're doing multiple projects, maybe try to time them all together and be more efficient with it. As for now, I think I may do some emblem work, which I'll do within the next couple days, so I can use this for that if I do a clear coat on any of it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this open and do the next step. Make sure once you break it open, you shake it really well for at least a couple of minutes, and then paint the same way you have the rest of the pieces. Here we go. Alright, so the first coat of clear is done. So, let it set for, I'm going to check right now and verify how much time it's supposed to sit. I don't think it's 20 minutes like the base coat. I think it's like 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to look right now while I'm waiting here and see. Second coat, clear coat, is now on. And depending on once it sets for 5 or 10 minutes, it's 5 to 10 minutes between coats for the clear coat. Once it sets about 5 to 10 minutes, I'll decide if I'm doing a third coat or not. Alright guys, so now that the clear coat has cured, it's 2 days later, I'm doing the final sanding and polishing to remove what they refer to as orange peel, which is, I don't know if it'll show up here, but there's little ripples, bubbles, because the clear coat doesn't dry perfectly even. So to fix that, I'm using 1200 grit sandpaper and wet sanding, just lightly going through with it wet, and just a light coat just to take off some of that extra ridging and bubbling. After you do that, then what I'm using is this McGuire's Ultra Cut compound with a microfiber rough filling cloth, and that's helping. And you can get a sponge for it or a disc for it, a cutting compound disc, but I'm just using this cloth and it's working perfect for me for something small like this. After that, then I go to the next stage, final stage, which is the ultra finishing polish. And for that, I am using, since I'm doing this by hand, I just cut little pieces off of a compound polishing wheel. So it's just a soft sponge that's for polishing. I'm just cutting little pieces off so they're better suited for the size of the handle. And I'm going through, and you apply it to the sponge, and then you just keep rubbing it in the same way that you did with the Ultra Cut compound until it gets completely dry and hazy. And then you give it a wipe, a soft wipe with a soft microfiber cloth, and your finished result will look something like this, which is nice, clean, and it knocked down some of those. There's a screen right here, so it may be looking like it's a little bit of a pattern in there, but that's just from the screen. You can see there's one little speck. I did this in the garage, so a little bit of dust and things settled, but for the most part it's all sanded off, and that's the final step. And then once this is done, I'll wait a couple weeks and then I'll probably give it a wax protecting coat. But okay guys, removing the EcoBoost on the back of my 2019 F-150, pretty straightforward. I'm taking a little bit of fishing line, just rubbing it from underneath, working my way through. You can see I've already got it loosened a little bit, so I wanted to start videoing for you. I'm just going to finish it off. So all you got to do is, also, I did warm it up a little bit with the heat gun. You can use a hair dryer as well. So just warm it up with a hair dryer or heat gun. Use your fishing line, wrap it down through and around. Alright, so see, the fishing line goes under like that, and then you just work it through so you can get it all to peel off. You can work it with your hand, start pulling back on it using the fishing line, warming it up with the heat gun, and that's about it. Alright, once it comes off, I ended up with a little extra because I just started pulling on it instead of worrying about fishing line all the way across. And then you just work that last little bit of sticky off, and then you'll be done. You just buff it out, clean it up a little bit. So while I'm doing the tailgate handle and the door handles, painting them to match the color of the truck, I decided, since I've already got this off, I'll go ahead and do something with the tailgate emblem. And I took off the EcoBoost badge just a minute ago, and now I'm pulling out this emblem, which is only in here. There's a couple of clips, which you can see right there. See, there's a couple of clips. There's actually 2 on each side, and plus 1 or 2 in the middle on the top and bottom. And then there's the adhesive. So I warmed it a little bit, and then just used a plastic pry bar tool so I wouldn't damage the paint. As you can see, everything's good. And now I'm just finishing working it off so I can decide on what paint I'm going to do on this. So once you've pried it, worked it loose, you can see there's 5 clips, and obviously the adhesive that sticks to it, and a little bit left here. So I'm just going to clean that up, and then I will peel this adhesive off and then decide how I'm going to go ahead and paint this. Alright guys, working on this emblem, I've seen a lot of people in their videos and they show that they're drilling this out. And I may have to get to where I drill out, but right now I'm noticing that if I just take this screwdriver and wedge it underneath the plastic and break it, then that seems to be all I need to do. As you can see, it allows you to push these posts out. So instead of drilling the whole thing, it looks like all you have to do is take a screwdriver, go underneath, and just pop the plastic like that. And once you break off the top edge there, I'm trying to do this one-handed. Once you break this edge off here, then it releases and you can just pop that off. So then you have plenty there still when you like to re-glue this, you still have plenty there to glue to instead of drilling it out. So we'll see if that works better, but it seems like it will. So the screwdriver worked great for all these big ones right here, but in here, those ones, I think I'm just going to use a drill real quick. Getting ready to paint for the custom black and white tailgate emblem. So I took it apart as I showed earlier, and what the plan will be is I'm going to paint this white, the Oxford white, to match the truck, and then so those letters will come through the plastic, and these will all be painted black. So it'll be white letters, and then that will be black. Then there's a white trim on the other piece that will come through, followed by this, which will then be black. Then it will have more white trim on the outside of the metal, and then that piece just supports underneath here. So just those top pieces will need to be black as well. So these are all going to be black, and this will be white. First thing I need to do is apply adhesive promoter on all the plastic pieces. I'm going to use 2 coats. Put the first coat on, wait about 5 minutes, put the second coat on, and then after that you wait about 15 to 20 minutes before putting your paint on. Okay, I applied the first thin coat of adhesive promoter. Wait about 5 minutes. So as soon as this is ready, in a couple more minutes after applying the adhesive promoter, I'll be going matte black on these, which is to match the body trim that I already have on my F-150. And I'm using this, which says it's for trim black ultra. It's supposed to match the black trim color that's already on vehicles. It's a good flat black color. So these will all be a matching black trim color. And then this will be my match to paint code, which is YZ for Oxford white for my truck. So this will be matching the paint. So the white will be a gloss, which I will apply the 2K clear glamour to the white so it matches the paint. And then I will leave this black flat without the clear coat so it matches black trim. That should give it a nice, good, custom look and a nice pop once I put it back in the tailgate. Okay guys, so I got 2 coats now of the white. Remember, you just want to do light coats, because if you do a lot on a coat, you're going to get bubbles or runs. So I think this is coming out pretty good. I still need to do another coat on this one. And I got 2 coats on the flat black. This one you can apply a little bit more generously because it's a flat. You're not going to gloss it afterwards. Okay, my second coat of clear coat is on. I think it looks pretty good. And then over here, you can see the flat black is drying really nice. So I'm going to let it sit overnight, and then we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. Okay, so putting the emblem back together, now that it's all been painted, I'm just going to use some Loctite all-purpose glue. You can use whatever glue you think would work best, but this is what I have. So glue these pieces back together, the little tabs here, glue them in, glue this in, and once it's glued together, I'll let that set. I'm going to run to the store and get some 3M. Hopefully they'll have some in stock. I'm just going to local auto store, get some 3M trim double-sided tape so I can replace the tape that I pulled off when I pulled off the emblem with some fresh new tape. And once I put that adhesive tape underneath, I'll snap this back in. But let me put it back together and see how it looks. Alright guys, so I put the tailgate handle back in. Same as how we took it apart, just putting it back together. So I put this pin in there and that pin through there with the spring back in. And now it's ready to be installed. To install, we're going to bring it up here like so. Connect the two wiring harnesses again. Those clips will sneak in right there, and then well actually you go out from the top first like that once you plug in those wires, and then you'll just pop it in down below. Alright, so now that I've got that fit in, we will put the nuts back on to secure it back up, and then we will pop this back on so it fully works. Alright, so the nuts have been tightened on, as you can see right there, and then now we just pop this control module back on, which you just snap it up and we should be good to go. So let's test this out. There we go. So the emblem is done. The rear tailgate emblem badge is complete. And so I glued it back together, let it set, and now I think it came out really well. Really looks nice on the truck. I went and got some 3M molding and trim tape. And so what I'll do is I will just pull some pieces out, place them on, cut out or wrap around as needed to match somewhat what the factory already had going on with this, and then pop it back into place. So once I get all the 3M taping all on the back of it, and then I'll make sure that it will line up where it will catch some of this freshly cleaned with some rubbing alcohol, so I have a good contact surface, and this will just go in with the double-sided adhesive tape, and there's a little idea of what it's going to look like. So instead of that blue that it used to be, I think it looks really good. Alright, let's get on it. Okay, so I cleaned the edges with alcohol. Just some rubbing alcohol rubbed in there. There's a couple of pieces of leftover adhesive from before, but I'm not too worried about it because I think that the overall adhesive is going to stick to the bare metal, and then we'll probably stick to some of that as well. So I'm cleaning a little bit more, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut little sections of strips that will fit between all these and take it all the way up, right up to the edge here. So we don't want it sticking up out, but we want it sticking on all this, because this part right here, all that is what sticks to the actual frame of the truck, the lining, that all will stick to it. So I'm going to go all around that edge, and then the original had it fully filled, so I'll take a couple of strands and run it all the way across the top. I'm not sure how much of a contact point they'll have, but it probably just does its job as far as just filling up the space and making it more weatherproof, so I'll go ahead and do that too. Okay, so I have the adhesive strips on one side. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but this is just how I did it. You can find another way that you like better, and that's great. It came in strips. I'm sure you can either order it in fatter pieces, or you could take the time and run like an edge strip and then cut it around, but I think this will do the trick for me. It's got the clips to hold it in, and then this is just to help adhesive to the body, so should work. I'm gonna go ahead and peel all these off now, and then I'll put it on. It's definitely a pain to peel all the separate little second side of the stickum for the adhesive tape. That was a pain. It took a little while, but now we're good. It clipped in, and then I'm just giving it some extra pressure, trying to make sure all that adhesive is in there and sticking good. But there it is. Instead of the blue, we've now got black and white. Alright, so now that the badge is back in, it's time to button everything back up. So, gotta find where this was lined up at. Lined up the holes. There we go. It's lined up. Okay, I'm just gonna button this up and done deal. Okay, here's with the handles back on. So I think they came out pretty good. It looks like the color is a spot on match.